Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to some Genshin Impact, and today I'm going to be using Albedo as a main DPS in Spiral Abyss. I'm going to be trying out 3 different builds in this video, running through floor 12, just the first half, and then I will kind of check it out, see which one worked the best, and then I'll be making another video using him as the main DPS through the entirety of floor 9 through 12, both sides. So the first build I'm going to go with is a physical DPS build. This one, I'm using the Black Sword personally. Obviously, this is a weapon you need to pay to get, so if you don't have it or don't want to do that, you can easily replace it with a Prototype Rancor. My Prototype Rancor is not leveled up, and honestly, I don't think it's very good, and since I have the Black Sword, there's really no reason for me to level up, so I'm going to just be using Black Sword here. And you'll also notice that for the 2 different weapons I'm using, they're level 90, my character's only level 80, and this is because I just hit AR 50. I haven't had the time to level up my characters quite yet. So for the artifacts, for the physical damage build, I'm going to be using 4-piece Gladiator's Finale with a physical damage goblet. Just to quickly go over the rest of my substats, I have some crit rate, some more crit rate, some more crit rate, some recharge, decent amount of attack and recharge, and some more crit rate and recharge. Elemental Mastery is obviously useless. The defense is nice for Albedo's E since it scales off of his defense. So I got some okay stats here. Obviously, it could be quite a bit better, especially the Goblet. The Goblet is by far the worst piece. I have him at Constellation 0. And for his talents, I have them at 5, 6, and 7 respectively. Alright, and for the second build, I'm going to be doing a full Geo one. This is going to be using the Festering Desire, which helps with his ult because of the recharge, and its entire passive is just helping his E out. For artifacts, I'm running 2-piece Gladiator Finale and 2-piece Archaic Petra. On the flower, I have some crit rate, crit damage, a nice big old attack percent. For the feather, I have some crit damage, which is nice, but then this ginormous defense percent bonus, which will just help his E be better. The Hourglass is exactly the same as the physical DPS build. In the Goblet, I'm running a Geo damage bonus. It's got absolutely horrible substats, but I can't really do much better with what I have. And then the same circlet as before. And then finally, that hybrid build, it's exactly the same as the one I just showed you, except this is going to be running with the Black Sword instead. In my opinion, I think this is probably going to be the best build. I'm not entirely sure, of course, but we'll find out here before too long. Just to quickly show you my stats, this is relatively accurate here with the crit damage and crit rate for all the builds. So for each of these builds, I'm using the exact same party members. I'll just quickly go over what they have. So Chi-Chi, just in case for healing, Sacrificial Sword, absolutely random artifacts. There's no rhyme or reason to this. Constellation 0, and then for talents, I have it at 4-4. For Zhongli, I have the Favonius Lance at level 88, and I'm running 4-piece Archaic Petra. I would prefer to run 2-piece Noblesse Oblige, 2-piece Archaic. However, I just haven't had the time to grind for the artifacts. Constellation 0, and his skills are at 6 and 8. So for the last party member, I have Bennett. He is at level 60. Absolutely random weapon, just because I haven't found a replacement weapon for him, because I gave his old weapon to Chi-Chi. And I'm running 4-piece Noblesse Oblige on him with Constellation 1 and his ult at level 4. So yeah, I'm really excited to get into this and just test these different builds out, and at the very end I'll decide which one's the best. If you want to jump into the different builds, there are timestamps below, and hope you enjoy.
Ancient power. Stabilize. Order guide you. Come into being. Moment of birth. This is order.
Orders given. Orders received. Rise.
Off we go.
Teamwork is dreamwork.
Quick. Order guide you. Coming to be. Burst forth. Moment of birth. Burst forth. Burst forth. This is order. Witness my great undertaking. My hammer. Quake! Coming to be. Feel this ancient power. Coming to be. I will have order. Burst forth. Witness my great undertaking.
Everybody stand back!
Coming to be. Coming to be. Witness my great undertaking. Fury. Gather. Burst. Order guide you. Coming to be.
Sacred name. Fortune preserve.
Coming to witness my great undertaking. Coming to be. Crumble. This is order. Witness my great undertaking. Burst forth. I will have order. Coming to be witness my great undertaking. Order guide you. Feel this ancient power. Live. With you. Order guide you. Coming to be. Feel this ancient power. With you. Moment of birth. Coming to be. Burst forth. I will have order. Quake. Burst forth.
Teamwork is dreamwork!
Burst forth.
Life goes on.
Witness my great undertaking.
This is order.
Come. Live. Feel this ancient power.
Sacred name, fortune preserver.
Order guide you. Quake.
Moments of birth. Coming to be.
Freeze.
Coming to be.
Stabilize.
Go. So
Live.
Order guide you. Stabilize.
Live. Feel this ancient power. Coming to.
Fry.
Coming to be.
I got callous. Gather.
Coming to be. Moments of birth.
over here.
I will have order.
Burst forth.
Okay, next up is the Geo damage build. We're using Festering Desire with 2-piece Archaic Petra and 2-piece Gladiator's Finale.
I will have order.
Witness my great undertaking. Burst forth. Burst forth. Witness my great undertaking. Burst forth.
This is order.
Everybody stand up.
Coming to. Witness my great undertaking.
Order guide you. Quake.
Burst forth. Witness my great undertaking. Burst forth. Feel this ancient power.
Order guide you.
Burst forth. Moments of birth.
Order guide you.
Burst forth. Burst forth.
Want a taste of my hammer?
Coming to be. Feel this ancient power. Burst forth.
Orders given. Orders received. Go.
Burst. My experiment failed. Moment of birth.
Orders given. Orders received. Yellow block.
Burst forth. Come again. Come into being. Moment of birth. Burst forth.
Jab, cross.
Come into being.
I will have order. Quake.
Teamwork is key.
Burst forth. Moment of birth.
Order guide you. Rise.
Witness my great undertaking. Live. Come into be.
This is order. Rise.
Come into. Moment of birth. Burst forth.
Go.
Order guide you. Ride.
Moment of birth. Live.
With you.
Doesn't come into being. Witness my great undertaking. Burst.
Solidify. Order guide you.
Burst forth.
Solidify.
Come into.
Life goes on.
Feel the ancient power. Come into being. Live.
I will have order.
Moment of birth. Burst forth. Feel this ancient power. Burst forth.
Life goes on.
Come into being. Burst forth.
Here to
Come into the moment of birth.
Order guide you. Gather.
over here. Sacred name. Fortune preserves.
Witness my great undertaking. Still coming.
Now you've got one down.
Burst forth.
This is order. Stabilize.
Everybody stand back.
Thank you. Burst forth. Feel this ancient power. Burst forth.
Quake.
Burst forth.
Fry.
Yellow faster. Okay,
Fry.
rise.
forth. Witness my great undertaking.
Solidify. I will have order.
Come into being.
Orders given. Orders received.
Over here. Feel this ancient power. Come into being.
Let me announce myself.
And moving on to the last build, we have exactly the same artifacts. The only thing we're switching is the Festering Desire for the Black Sword.
Rise. This is order. Stabilize.
Witness my great undertaking. Come into being.
Teamwork is dreamwork.
I will have order. Stabilize.
Feel this ancient power.
This is order. Crumble.
Moment of birth. Burst forth. Burst forth. Moment of birth.
Stabilize. I will have order.
Come into Witness my great undertaking. Come into being.
Everybody stand back.
Live. Moment of birth.
Want a taste of my hammer? Rise. Order guide you.
Burst forth. Burst forth. Live. Witness my great undertaking. Come into being.
Rise.
Come into being.
This is order.
Feel this ancient power. Live. Burst forth. Burst forth. Feel this ancient power.
I will have order.
Live. Feel this ancient power.
Rise. This is order.
Come into being. Feel this ancient power.
I will have order.
Burst forth. Moment of birth. Burst forth. Come into being.
Crumble. This is order.
Moment of birth. Burst forth. Burst forth.
Order guide you. Quake.
Live. Moment of birth. Live. Burst forth. undertaking. Burst forth.
Stabilize. Order guide you.
Everybody stand up!
Burst forth. Burst forth. Feel the ancient power. Burst forth. Coming to beat. Live.
This is order.
Moment of birth. Burst forth.
This is order.
Feel this ancient power. Burst forth. Coming to beat. Feel this ancient power.
Order guide you. Rise.
Live. Coming to be.
We all fight.
Cry.
Live.
You really know
Great
how to get
undertaking.
me going.
Cry.
Burst forth.
This is order.
Opening box of a Death Eye Tricks. Go in it! Over here!
Burst forth.
Let me amuse myself.
Burst forth. Coming to be. Moments of birth.
I will have order. Run.
Coming to be. Coming to be. Burst forth.
Over here!
Feel this ancient power.
Let me amuse myself a little. Boring.
I will have order.
Burst forth. Witness my great undertaking.
Over here!
Live. Burst forth.
I want to start off by saying that there is a little bit of leeway here and there with the different times, because like in Spiral Abyss, there have been times where I've run with the exact same build and then gotten like 30 seconds quicker, or on the other side 30 seconds slower, just because of ability usage being bad or good. And I know there were definitely some times here where I didn't use an ability well, or like I dodged at the wrong time or something. I was just trying to kind of test it out and see how it felt and stuff. So I'll go over the times it took real fast for me to do each one. So for the physical build, Chamber 1, it took 1 minute and 52 seconds. For the Geo build, it took 1 minute and 58 seconds. And for the hybrid, it took 1 minute and 31 seconds. So the hybrid was quite a bit better there. But again, with that leeway, it's not confirmed that it's necessarily better or worse than the other ones, but it did come out on top. Okay, so for Chamber 2, for the physical, we had 2 minutes and 52 seconds. For Geo, we had 2 minutes and 40 seconds. And then for the hybrid, we had 2 minutes and 31 seconds. So again, hybrid comes out on top. This time, the gap is quite a bit less. And for Chamber 3, physical damage was at 3 minutes and 47 seconds. Geo damage was at 4 minutes and 14 seconds. And hybrid was at 3 minutes and 51 seconds. So there, the only one that was like really kind of an outlier was the geo damage one. I think against single targets, the geo damage one is pretty bad because when you're using Albedo's abilities, right, when you throw him down, it's a pretty big AoE, and then when you smack somebody in the radius of his E, it does that AoE damage. And then his ult, of course, that's AoE as well. So I think for the big groups in the first 2 chambers, it was really, really good because you were able to do a lot of damage with that AoE, but when you got into the 3rd chamber, it was like against just a few enemies that had a lot of health, so it wasn't as good. So the first 2 builds felt okay. I mean, the second one, obviously, it didn't have any bonuses to the normal attacks, so it did feel a little lackluster, and it felt like the only damage I was doing was pretty much from my E, and honestly, even my Q didn't feel like it was doing too much damage. I mean, a decent amount, but I think really the one that shined was the hybrid build, so I guessed correctly. It felt really, really good as I was running around using my abilities, and I was just like doing big numbers, both my normal attacks, charge attacks, and my abilities. Because, I mean, it all comes down to what the weapon actually is, right? Because with the artifacts I'm running here, we have the 18%, which goes to everything that helps with his basic attacks, his E, and his Q. Archaic Petra helps with his E and his Q, which we were using quite a bit, and especially because his E's proccing a lot, and using him as a main DPS, we're laying down the E a lot, which the initial placement of the E also does quite a bit of damage. And then, of course, the Black Sword. If you compare it to the Festering Desire, the Festering Desire has its stat only helps your ult. Its passive only helps your E. The Black Sword has a passive that only helps your basic attacks, but it is the crit rate stat, which helps everything. Their base attack is exactly the same, but because you have this crit rate stat that's just, I mean, crit rate is really, really important in this game. And my crit damage wasn't all that high. I mean, this could definitely be better, but overall, I mean, that's pretty good. And having that increased crit rate is very, very nice, because imagine if I didn't have that 27 point, whatever it is, 27.6, I think, I wouldn't be hitting this 127 at all. But because I had the Black Sword, I was able to just keep getting that crit over and over. And I saw the numbers as I was playing. It's just, this felt really, really good with the Geo build. When you're using Albedo as a main DPS and you have the Festering Desire, there were like quite a few times where I got my ult back before the cooldown was done. So, like 4 seconds, and I just couldn't use it. And then when I switched to the Black Sword, the same thing was happening, except I had like a second, or 0.8 of a second left. And so I was able to use it a lot quicker, and I was able to benefit off the crit rate. So honestly, the recharge didn't really help that much. Obviously, the passive for the Festering Desire does, because it just, his E is always happening. It's always dealing damage, and that's really, really nice. But with the Black Sword, the crit rate, that helps with everything. Just crit rate just means more damage straight up, and with a decently big, at least, crit damage that I had here, that crit rate means a lot. And with the Festering Desire, you get no bonuses to your normal or charge attacks. This does do a little bit. I mean, it's not like a ton, but it is a decent amount. This is pretty nice, right? Generally speaking, with characters, I like to build them with kind of one particular thing. Like my supports, I'm going to build their abilities. With my DPS, I'm going to build their, just damage, whatever gives them damage. So for like Diluc, I have Prototype Archaic. That gives attack, that helps his abilities and his attacks. Like everything that I'm using in his kit, that's what I like to buff. And with Diluc, that's what I'm doing here. I know I have Festering Desire on her right now. Normally I run Black Sword on her. So I just gave it to her. But, she would have the crit rate, which helps with all of her abilities. And then she has the normal attack, and she deals like 80 to 90% normal attacks and charged attacks. So like Black Sword's really good for her. So just playing off their strengths and what you're using the most. And when you're using a character as a main DPS, it's their normal attacks are going to be important. I can't think of any character in this game where you use their abilities more than their normal attacks. I mean, even with Diluc, where he's got, his E that you can use 3 times, and then it's got a decently short cooldown after you get done with it, you're still using, like, I don't know, like 10 basic attacks every 3 uses of his E or something. So you're still doing a lot with his basic attacks. So you really want to get those going as well. So having someone be a main DPS just means they're on the field, they're hitting people with both their abilities and their attacks. So you need to buff all of that. If you just play on one of those strengths, you're probably not going to do too much damage. I think there are a couple exceptions to this, like with Kuching, you could build her with just physical damage, with just her basic attacks, and it would work pretty well. I've seen some pretty crazy, like, Bloodstained Chivalry builds, where just crazy damage over and over. Also, Razor, for example, that's another character where you'd want to build physical damage. But for most DPS characters, you really want to have them using everything, their whole kit, have everything doing extra damage, which I know I already used this as an example, but the Prototype Archaic, this helps everything. This helps his normal attacks, this helps his E, this helps his Q. Just things like that are really important. So Albedo, normally when he's a support, the Festering Desire is really good because he's not in the field, so it just charges his ult faster, and then it makes his E better, which is like the key thing that he brings to the field when he is, a support, which is, again, what he's meant to be. His E is just constantly activating, so building on that strength of his is super important. But when he's on the field doing most of the damage, you need to also have his basic attacks doing damage, and that's where the Black Sword really helped. So it's a little unfortunate, though. This ended up being the best one because, this weapon that you can only get from the Battle Pass. I don't necessarily know if there's any good alternatives. Like the Flute, maybe. That would be a good one. I was thinking about that earlier because that's got an attack percent that helps everything, and you're doing your normal attacks. So you get the passive going, which is pretty good. This is a weapon that you'd have to roll, though. So in terms of getting like a consistently good weapon for this, I don't really know what would be good. I will say characters being a main DPS, energy recharge seems a little pointless most of the time, so I would avoid things like Festering Desire and Sacrificial Sword when you have them as a main DPS, because the character that's on the field gets more energy than the characters that are in the party when you collect an elemental particle or orb. And the last thing I want to say is for just specifically Albedo, I have an attack build on him, so like here you got an attack percent and crit, blah blah blah, whatever. Normally when I am playing him, though, I have him with his defense one, and the only reason I have that is because I just haven't gotten one of these with a crit rate or crit damage. But I wanted to mention that because it's important. If you have his second constellation, he gets this bonus here. I mean, you can read it if you want, but basically it just building him with defense is super viable. And so if you have Constellation 2 for him for whatever reason, just super lucky or you went for it, like, build defense on him for sure. But for the sake of everything I do, all my characters are Constellation 1, and honestly, I kind of hope it stays that way. The one exception is, like, if I get Zhao or something, but I think it's just a lot more fair to make videos with, Constellation 0, because then free-to-play players can get it as well. I mean, Constellation's just kind of lame. It's kind of a money grab, but, if you get it, good on you. It'll definitely help you. So I was able to complete floor 12 with all of those builds, so none of these are bad necessarily. I will say Albedo is really good as a support, so unless you're using something like the Flute or the Black Sword, I would not recommend having him as a main DPS. But if he's the 1 5-star character you have and you've buffed him up and your other characters aren't really, and something like that, then you can do it with something like, I don't know, Prototype Rancor or even Festering Desire if you had to, because like I said, I managed to do it. Albedo was super fun. I decided to go for him after playing his trial because he was just really awesome. So that's kind of my inspiration for doing this, having him as a main DPS. So I will definitely be making a video where I go through floors 9 through 12 with him, both sides, because I like to make sure that I can do everything, and I just don't have like a specific way that works. But yeah, Albedo as main DPS is surprisingly fun. I've done Zhongli as well. It worked, and it'll work even better when the update's out. And here I use Zhongli and Albedo, so when Geo Resonance is out, that'll be even better. And I'm just really excited to keep doing this with more characters, and hope you enjoyed. I'll see you next time.